You know that one song you've got on repeat? Ever stop and wonder where those sounds actually come from? Well, let me tell you, the secret history of your music is way, way weirder and more electric than you could ever imagine.
You probably think that synth melody or that heavy bass line was just cooked up on a laptop, right? But nope, the story doesn't start there. It starts with a literal monster. I'm talking about the great-great-grandfather of every electronic sound you have ever heard. A 200-ton metal beast that was basically the world's very first music streaming service, all the way back when your great-great-grandparents were kids.
So let's dive into Chapter 1, Giant Machines and Ghostly Sounds. The first attempts at making music with electricity were less about making hit songs and more about pure mad science. Okay, so meet the telharmonium. This thing was an absolute unit. It was so big and needed its own building. It used these huge rotating metal shafts to create musical tones. And the idea was genius, really. They wanted to pump concerts directly through the telephone network, kind of like an early Spotify. The only problem, it was so powerful that it just zapped everybody's phone calls. So yeah, it was a brilliant failure, the clumsy, hilarious beta test for all electronic music to come.
So after that giant machine, things got weird. Like really weird. The next big invention was something straight out of a ghost story. It was an instrument you could play just by waving your hands in the air. And here it is, the theremin. Its two antennas create this invisible force field, like something from a superhero movie. You literally play it without touching it. One hand controls how high or low the note is, and the other controls the volume. It's what makes that eerie, wobbly, ooh sound you hear in old sci-fi movies. It is, for sure, the spooky ghost of early synthesizers.
So how do these things actually work? To get that, we need to learn the secret code of sound. Now, don't worry, this is not going to be some boring science lesson. Just think of these as the 3 cheat codes you need to unlock pretty much any synthesizer sound. If you get these 3 things, you'll understand the basics of how almost all electronic music is made. It's that simple. First up, oscillators. The easiest way to think about these is like choosing your character class in a video game. An oscillator is what generates the raw sound. A sine wave, for example, is pure and smooth, like a flute. But a square wave, that's your aggressive, buzzy, in-your-face sound, kind of like an old 8-bit video game. This is the very first choice you make, the fundamental voice of the synth. Okay, so you've picked your character. Now it's time to customize it. And that's where filters come in. A filter is literally an Instagram filter, but for sound. It shapes the tone by cutting out certain frequencies. So you can make a sound really dark and muffled, or super bright and sharp, just by turning one knob. It's how you give it mood and personality.
And finally, the envelope. This is how you program the sound's shape over time. Imagine you're programming a character's jump in a video game. Attack is how fast they launch off the ground. Decay and sustain are the hang time, how they kind of float at the top of the jump. And release is how they land, how long the sound lingers after you let go of the key. This is what makes a sound punchy like a drum, or long and soaring like a violin. So with those cheat codes unlocked, inventors started building instruments that musicians could actually use. And this is the era where the synthesizers stopped being a science experiment and became a full-on certified rock star. In the 1960s, a kind of synth console war sparked up. On the East Coast, you had Robert Moog, and on the West Coast, you had Don Buchla. Both were absolute geniuses, but they had totally different ideas about what a synthesizer should even be.
Their whole philosophies were completely different. Moog was kind of like a PlayStation. He slapped a familiar piano keyboard on his synth, which made it super easy for rock bands to just plug in and play. Buchla, on the other hand, he was more like a high-end, custom-built gaming PC for sound nerd. He used these weird touch plates instead of keys, because he wasn't trying to copy old instruments. He was trying to invent completely new ones.
Okay, so synths were now on stage and in the studio. The next step in their evolution was to make them smaller, more powerful, and, eventually, to leave the world of physical circuits behind for good.
And this was a huge deal. Instruments like the Mini Moog packed all that power into a single box. All of a sudden, the keyboard player wasn't stuck in the back of the stage behind a mountain of gear anymore. They could be right up front, a true frontman, shredding a synth solo just like a guitarist.
And then came this year, 1983. This was a moment that completely changed music forever. This was the year the synthesizer went fully digital.
And this was the revolution. The Yamaha DX7 didn't use circuits to make sound. It used math and computer chips. Suddenly, you had these incredibly realistic sounds, like bells and pianos, and you could store hundreds of them right in the machine. It was cheaper, more reliable, and it went on to completely define the sound of 80s pop music.
Okay, wow. We've gone from a 200-ton machine to a tiny computer chip. So let's bring all this together and see what this secret history means for you right now. So here's the entire journey in one shot. It started with a machine bigger than a bus. It shrank into a playable instrument that rock stars could use. Then it became a computer chip. And today, all of that power, from that 200-ton beast to the 80s icon, now lives as software right on your laptop. I mean, it's just a staggering leap when you really think about it. Everything that started with these giant physical machines making vibrations has evolved into incredibly powerful software on our computers. Sound literally became data. And that's really the most amazing part. The legacy of the Telharmonium, the Theremin, Moog, Buchla, the DX7, it is all right there. Every single time you open a music app or listen to a song, you are experiencing the end result of over a century of wild, brilliant experimentation. So now you know the secret history hiding in your headphones. You have more power to create sound on your laptop than those pioneers had in an entire building. The story isn't over. It's your turn now. What comes next?